When it comes to our communication, misunderstanding and being misunderstood lead to deep frustration and inner turmoil. But if we would only open our ears, heart, and our soul to listen truthfully and deeply, we'll find ourselves heading closer to the center of calmness. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Center of Calmness, where we take everyone from stressed out to more inner peace and to higher levels of success. And tonight, we're super blessed to have Danny Levin with us tonight. Welcome, Danny.
Hey, how are you? Okay, honored to be here. I'm
Doing
the
well.
West.
Doing well. How's everything with you there in San Diego?
Well, if it was any better, it would be illegal, my friend. We're sitting here in this pandemic with race all around. The air is burning. Me Too movement's going, but we sit in the calm of our own place. As Yogananda said years ago, you either carry with you a portable hell or a portable heaven, and you can with you wherever you go. So sit in my portable heaven and just bless the world and pray the world from here.
Absolutely. It is truly the only space that we have any control of at all, right, is our inner space. So I wanted to get straight into your story, because your story has so many interesting twists and turns, and there's so much depth there, right? So I would wonder if perhaps you could just take us through from the time where you were primarily business focused and what that looked like, and then perhaps take us through the transition where you went away from that pursuit toward the pursuit of inner peace.
Sort of mixed and matched all together. I think the highlight points are: I lost my mom and dad when I was my dad died when I was 13, my mom when I was 15, 2 years apart on the same day. And that day was July 4th. So in America, that's Independence Day. So what that made me think is that I had to be independent. I thought that's the message clearly that they're giving me: be independent, stand alone, be strong, learn how to do stuff. It wasn't until years later that I realized, as I was writing The Mosaic, the book that I wrote, that what really happened is I asked the adults where my parents went, and they told me they went to a place called heaven. So I set out as a kid to find heaven. And even though when my parents passed away, I moved in with an aunt and uncle who I didn't know. My mother's sister had married a man who had become a household name internationally. And it was in the days, this was 50 years ago. So it was in the days where a man did not give over his business to his daughter. There was something just not right about that. And this was in the Midwest of the US, not on the coast. And it was even a little further unlikely to do that. So when I came into the house, he went, this is interesting. I don't know much, but let's see what he looks like. Let's see what he feels like. Let's see what he has, what he has. And he said to me, I'm going to watch you for a month or a month and a half. And at the end of a month and a half, I may or may not give you an option that will change your life. So I'm going to watch you. And a month and a half into it, he said, I'm going to offer you something that you're not going to believe. I'm going to start you tomorrow, sweep with a broom the offices. And I'm going to watch you progress to the level you can progress to. And stop, I will mentor you so that in 15 years from now, you're in my seat, because that's when I retire. And you will be running a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And I will guide you every step of the way. But I want to see how far you can grow. And he's think, what an amazing opportunity you're offering me. I mean, it sounds great, but I have no idea like who you are. We don't know each other very well, and you're smart. It took a month to see if I'm a person. I'm a kid. I take a year at you and see if I like what I see, and if I want to do that. And he said to me, Danny, do you know 99.99, say 9 until you drop dead, % of the people would have said, where's the broom? I'll start today. Yeah, just our rotten luck that I'm the 0.00001. I can't do that. And he said, well, that's one of the things that I like about you, but be careful. That could be your greatness, or it could be your demise. As it turns out, to make a long story already long, just a little shorter, I walked away from that opportunity because I didn't see in life that they were living the heaven that I was looking for. It wasn't that there was anything wrong with that life. It just wasn't what I was looking for. And so I had multiple opportunities. I went away to school and I had psychology, and the man that I studied under was the founder of organizational psychology. And he looked at me and he said, Danny, I want you to be my main student. I'm starting this and I want you to be my protege, and I will hand this over to you. Almost exact same scenario in something I was more interested in. And in 2 years of studying psychology, I saw that it didn't have the answers to the questions I was looking for. And so I dropped out and walked away from that. So at 18 years old, I put my thumb out on the road and hitchhiked around the world. Again, looking for that heaven. Psychology wasn't, business wasn't, and I was looking for that heaven. And I was hitchhiking to India, and along the way, I got stopped in Israel when a holy man said to me, "I want you to come and learn with me because I believe you have the potential to take over my seminary, and I want to train you, but you don't know how to see. I'm going to teach you how to see. Would you be willing to learn how to see?" And I said, "Sure, that would be lovely." And he taught me how to see. But what I saw was that wasn't the place for me either, and I walked away from that. I came back to America, and I opened up a restaurant and a bookstore. And I thought, how cool would this be, just to sit here and have the experience of the people coming in instead of me traveling around and meeting them, bringing them all into this one place, learning together, having coffees together and feeding people, nourishing people, body, mind, soul. But that wasn't my heaven either. And so I walked away from that, and I said, surely I'll find my heaven in a monastery. And I joined a monastery. I was a monk in a monastery for 10 years. And I fell in love with the monastery. DK, have you ever fallen in love?
I have.
So you know that feeling of when you fall in love, all you want to be is with your beloved. You can't think or talk about anything else but. That's how it was the first time that I made contact in meditation. I couldn't stand to be away from my beloved. So I would sit 18 hours a day, sometimes 12 hours a day when I couldn't sit 18. And I would sit and just be with my beloved. And sometimes I would go there and sit late into the night, and I would fall asleep in the arms of my beloved. And I would chastise myself and say, Danny, you can't sleep here. You don't get any merit for sleeping in the meditation room. You go home and sleep. And I heard my beloved whisper to me, you're sleeping in the arms of your beloved. Why are you so hard? Why isn't that okay? Spend your time with me. Be with me. Let me love you. Let me take care of you. And somehow over the course of time, she softened me. And I sat there until I went away to lead a trip for people around to holy places. And when I came back, a woman that I was friendly with picked me up at the airport. And I said, wow, this is a surprise. How come you're here and not one of my brothers from the monastery? And she said, well, you're going to be surprised. I said, tell me what's going on. She said, I prefer to when we get home. I said, come on, let me know now what's going on. She said, well, I moved you out of the monastery and into my house. I just feel like we should be together. And so that was the end of my days as a monk. And I married her, and we had a daughter together. And in those situations, every single one of them, I found a piece of heaven, but not the heaven that I was looking for. It wasn't until I was writing the mosaic that I realized my heaven is not a place. It's not a thing that I'm doing. It's in the perceptual shift of looking at the same thing I always looked at and suddenly seeing it differently. And in that shift, the earth that I was looking at, the things that I was looking at, the businesses that I walked away from, the study that I walked away from in the seminary, the monastery that I walked away from, the relationships that I walked away from, all had heaven in them. I just couldn't see them. And even though the Rebbe had taught me to see, he didn't teach me to see the heaven I was looking for until I wrote the Mosaic. And I realized just a change of perspective. It was later that I met Wayne Dyer when I was director of business development at Hay House. And I brought Wayne to do workshops with us and conferences and lectures. And we were sitting around the table, and he looked at me and he said, Danny, when you change the way you see the world you see changes. And I said, that's exactly what I'm coming to. And that became one of his sort of big things that people quote him for. But we sat together and he told me that, and I realized how true that was. And so the Mosaic is really about how do we look at the same thing? And it comes about because it's the story of a boy who loses his parents and goes in search of heaven. But the people he finds along the way are not the holy men or the rabbis and ministers and priests and shamans and gurus. They're the common ordinary people. It's a street worker and a blind woman, a trash man and a homeless guy. And he wonders, why am I sitting with them? But when he did and he listened to their stories, what he found in every single case was he no longer was looking at the person he initially saw. He saw somebody entirely different now. Again, a change of perspective. He had seen a different person by just spending time listening to their stories. So now what I do is I spend most of my time listening to people's stories. Because what I found is no matter how rich you are, no matter how poor, no matter what religion you practice or don't practice, no matter what border you live behind or the color of your skin, every single one of us wants the same thing. We want to be listened to and heard. We want to be loved and accepted. And we want to be acknowledged and validated. And so I hold these sessions in this room. It started as 50 conversations with 50 strangers. The first week, that name was no longer appropriate because I'd had hundreds of conversations already. And so in the first week and a half, it blew me away how many people want to talk to a stranger. And I thought, why do they want to talk to an imperfect stranger like me? There's lines to do it. How come they want to do that? And then I realized there aren't many people that give you the space to be heard. There aren't many people that love and accept you just as you are, that listen to you and hear you, that acknowledge and validate you. And who wouldn't want that? We all want that.
Absolutely.
So there's a link in the show notes that you'll have where anybody who's listening to this, I don't want to know anything about you. I just want you to sign up for that hour and come and have a conversation with me. And I want to hold the space. My only objective in that room is to love you and accept you, to listen to you and hear you, and to validate you and acknowledge you for what you believe.
That is super deep. And I actually picked up a copy of your book, The Mosaic. It is The Mosaic, right?
Yes, The Mosaic. Yes. Thank you so much.
I picked it up on Kindle actually today, and I was just starting to read it. Of course, I haven't had that much time to read it, but I can feel the depth almost immediately as I'm going through the first couple stories. And yeah, as soon as we're done here, I'm going to read the rest of it and just take it as a journey. And then, of course, I'm sure we will have our conversation to come.
I would love that. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm super looking forward to that as well. Now, just to put some clarity on whether you found your heaven or not, it sounds like you actually have, and definitely as I read the first part of your book, there is a heaven message that I'm pulling out of there that you have embodied or that flowed through you into this book. Can you put any more flesh around the idea of kind of where the place of heaven is, the shift in perception that you mentioned, and perhaps even give an example of how you met somebody, listened to them, not so much in the story, but actually somebody in reality, right, where you met them, your perception, and then you found that bit of heaven in that experience.
What a beautiful opportunity, and thank you so much for asking that question. What a powerfully beautiful question to allow me to illustrate that point in the story. So I've had the opportunity to sit with some of the richest people in the world, not in their audiences, but at their dinner tables. I've met their parents and I've played on the floor with their kids. I've had the opportunity, because I was at Hay House, to be with some of the people that inspire millions of people. to sit with them around the dinner table. And both people, the rich people and the inspiring people, were kind enough to ask my counsel on certain things, and were even kinder to give me their counsel in my life. But I've also had the opportunity to sit on street corners with the poorest of the poor, and to listen to their stories, and to have them introduce me to their friends. The meals we've had were very different, because I would bring with me a bottle of wine, a loaf of bread, and a piece of cheese, and I would sit with them on their cardboard box, and we would eat that together. It wasn't prepared by cordon bleu chefs, but it was still as rich a meal as any I've ever had. And one of the people that touched me the most through the process of all the people that I met was Corey. Corey was a homeless man that I met in San Diego. I'm a little bit of an empath, so as I was walking down the street this day, somehow, I don't know what happened, but everything that happened, I could feel people in my body. So I walked by and I had a splitting headache as this person passed me by. And the headache was so intense that I just couldn't believe it. And then 2 seconds later, when he passed me by, it was gone. And then suddenly I was walking a little bit further, and I felt this heart murmur and a pain in my heart. And I went, oh my God, my heart, like I could be having a heart attack. 5 seconds later, the person passed, and I didn't feel it anymore. 5 minutes later, I'm walking and my knee buckles under because of the pain in my leg is so big that I fell to the ground. And I said, what the heck is happening? And then 2 minutes later, that pain was gone because that person hobbled past me. And so I said, I got to get off the street here. I just got to get to a corner and just sit against the building. And this is like something's going on. I can't deal with it. And at the corner I came up to was a homeless man by the name of Corey. And as I came up, Corey said, no, this is my corner. You can't come here. And I said, listen, friend, I want nothing from you. He said, well, you're being here. It's going to make me not make money. And I need to make money. And I said, how much will you make in the next 30 minutes? He said, $5. I make $5 a half an hour. I make $5 every half hour. I said, okay, here, put this in your pocket. And I gave him $50. And I said, anything you make with me sitting here is yours in addition to that. I just need to sit with you. And I just need to listen to you. I want to hear your story. Well, it didn't come out very easily. It took about 45 minutes of sitting with him to hear his story. And when I heard his story, he told me that, he said, Danny, it's not easy to be homeless. People treat you like a thing. They don't treat you like a human being. They walk by and they spit on you, or they punch you, or they kick you. He said, I had a group of boys walk by and beat me up so much that I couldn't even, my face was not recognizable. I've had people urinate on me when I'm sleeping. I've had people throw bags of human defecation at me. He said, I hate being homeless. I'm embarrassed that I'm homeless. And then people around me just hate me for being homeless. And one day it just got to me. It was too much. And so I went around I decided when it turned dark and nobody could see me, I'd go around the corner to a street that is not traveled on. And I was going to take my life. Not 2 minutes after I had that thought, a man out of nowhere came up and put his hand on my shoulder. And he said, how you doing, brother? And I said, this is not a good time. This is not a good time. Just go away. This is not a good time. Just keep walking. But the man didn't keep walking. He sat down next to him and he put his arm around me and he said, tell me what's going on. And Corey told me tears started to pour from his eyes at the shame that he felt and the embarrassment that he felt. And he told everything to this man. And then he looked at me and he said, Danny, it only took 10 minutes. But in those 10 minutes, I could no longer kill myself that night because a man who was important, dressed nicely, stopped and sat down next to me and found value in what I was saying and listened to me. He said, I wish I would have found that guy because I would have liked to tell him that day he saved my life, but I never saw him again. So I said, Corey, if you could stop these people walking by, what would you say? He said, I'd tell them that story. And I'd ask them to take 10 minutes out of their course of their life. Go up to someone they don't know and just listen. Don't try and fix them. Don't try and change them. Don't try and help them. Don't try and elevate them. Don't try and convert them. Just listen to them. The power of just listening to somebody is amazing. But I never got a chance to tell him that. I went back to that street corner many, many times to see if I could find Corey again. But I haven't been able to find Corey again. So he has no idea that the story he told and the requests that he made would have made to the people that passed by him if they would only stop and listen to him. I've told now to probably millions of people through talks that I've given, lectures that I've had, boardrooms that I've been in, podcasts that I've been on, situations where I've been in front of people. They all know now Corey's story. And I've offered the same challenge that he wanted to offer them to probably millions of people now. And I'll offer it to people on this show as well. If you like that story, you have no idea what the power of listening can do. Go up to someone you don't know and just listen to them. And if you fall in love with the concept, go up to someone you do know. Try it with your wife or your husband. Just sit with no agenda and just listen. You'll be amazed what you found. Hundreds of people are coming into this Zoom room and sitting with me and telling me their stories. And I'm watching as people are listened to and seen. Everything that they are not falls away. And suddenly who they are emerges. And sometimes they see themselves for the first time themselves. And it's amazing to see what happens.
That's so deep. Wow. I'm glad you shared that. And that is an actionable, I don't want to say tip, but an actionable action, if you will, right? To deliberately make that connection happen and spend that time listening to a stranger to start. I have heard of some others that have made that a bit of a pilgrimage, right, where they go find some folks and just spend that time listening, and it changes them. I've seen the tremendous results from that, and in the case in the case of Corey, right, it saved his life. That listening, so much power and actually the potential life-saving potential in what you're hearing. That's totally awesome. Wow, I'm moved.
Thank you. And even if it doesn't save your life physically, what's happened is when people feel heard, blockages in their body open up, and there's suddenly energy flows through their body, and that center of calmness that you talk about, that you built your show around. Suddenly, without the contradiction and out the conflict and without all the blockages that we feel, that we stop ourselves from being who we are, when someone just listens to us and gives us just a few minutes, it doesn't take that long. Suddenly those blockages open and it flows freely, and we go, wow, what in the heck happened? I just had a conversation 2 days ago with this woman who, she said, what did you do to me? I have so much energy going through my body now. And I said, I did nothing. I just sat and listened to you. And we ended up in that conversation. She needed to get in touch with herself as the little girl. And so we had her meet her younger 5-year-old self that she had never spoken to and never felt. But that little girl had blocked her, and she had blocked that little girl. And she had forgotten how to love because she wouldn't even deal with the things that little girl had to go through. And the little girl felt abandoned and left behind because she had to do it all on her own. Now they're doing it together. And she said, I can't tell you what's happening. I'm walking into places and people are just coming up to me like, what's going on now? You look totally different. You look amazing. And I'm feeling things moving through my body that I never felt before. It's not because of anything I did. It's just because she was heard.
Wow, that's amazing. So just by creating the opportunity and letting her tell her story, that was all it took to create that opening and that integration and all that. I mean, that transformation that took place right in front of you, like that.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, for your listeners, think about it. When was the last time you were with somebody who loved you and accepted you, listened to you and heard you, and acknowledged and validated you for what you believe, with no agenda to try and prove you wrong, to fight you, to ask you to defend yourself on something, to tell you you're right or you're wrong, just to hold the space for you to say to the world who you are and give you that platform to do it. There aren't many moments that people have in their life, unfortunately, where that happens. And we together,
Right.
we together, all of us, I'm one person doing it. But imagine if millions of people were doing it. Can you imagine if people did what Corey asked? And we did it not just for 10 minutes, but for 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes in the course of a lifetime is nothing. 10 minutes maybe we did it 10 minutes a week. Imagine if millions of us did 10 minutes a week and found someone we didn't know, how this world would change. When people are strangers, we live in a strange world. When we listen to people and give them the space to talk to them, suddenly they become our friends. And when people are friendly, we live in a friendly world. Which world do you want to live in?
Clearly the friendly one, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have enjoyed shifts in my own life, and actually as a result of being more among friends, folks that were willing to listen to what I had to offer. That's part of the reason how this show even came into being. So yeah, I completely resonate with that. Just our time is drawing to a close here, but I did want to ask one final question. Because so many out there are perhaps not ready to listen, there are also many out there that are not quite ready to share. So if I could ask, when you are working to create that moment, those 10 minutes where you're just completely open and letting them just share and be validated, how do you start the conversation?
Okay, so it doesn't take a formula. I start the conversation by asking somebody how you are. Like I'll say, DK, how are you? And the normal response is fine, great, wonderful. And I say, okay, I understand that. How are you has become a salutation now, not a question. So it's like, hello, how are you? Hi, I'm great, good, how are you? And most people don't really give a damn. And so they just let it go by that. But when you really care, so what I'll say to people is, I understand, and I appreciate that, and I'm so happy you're good and great and fine. But let me ask you a question. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. We have race riots going on. We have a Me Too movement. We have fires in California and all through the West Coast, and flooding in all through the East Coast. The structures that we've grown up with, the foundations, the organizations that have been our bedrock, are crumbling before our eyes. Let me try again. How are you? How are you amidst all that? And suddenly people say, well, gosh, I'm stressed out just like everybody else, I guess. I mean, I'm not doing all that good. And I said, tell me about it. And when you just open up the door that you care enough about people and they realize you care enough, they'll start to speak to you. But the most important place in my place is that I have no agenda, that I walk in with an agenda-less conversation. I'm not trying to fix them. I'm not trying to change them. I'm not trying to sell them a product. I'm not trying to sell them my services. I'm not trying to do anything. My only agenda is to love and accept them, to listen to them and hear them, and to acknowledge and validate them. I want them to know that they are seen. And when people feel seen, miraculous things happen. It's amazing. And you can go to my websites and you can see the conversations that are there. The mosaiconline.com/conversations / you'll see hundreds of conversations. There are too many for you to even look at, but I put them all there for you to see it. You can go to my YouTube channel and see them. They're all in the show notes. And watch for yourself. And then you don't have to see what they see. Join me for an hour and experience the experience and see what you see and feel. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then you've lost an hour. What's the big deal?
In the grand scheme of things, it's a worthwhile investment, especially for all the depth that you're bringing here today. What you're sharing is super profound, and I really appreciate it. I know my audience does as well. I did want to include some links for folks to learn more, because clearly there's a lot more to learn here. And of course, I wish that as many of the audiences can to book that hour and enjoy that experience, which potentially could be significantly life-changing. So we've got two websites here for you: DanielBruceLevin.com for the main website, and then more specific to the book, The Mosaic. The link is mosaiconline.com. Danny, thanks again for your willingness to take the time to join us and give us an opportunity to listen to your stories today.
DK, it's been such a pleasure, and thank you for holding the space for me to share my story. I so appreciate you and the space that you held for me. What a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you for joining, and I look forward to joining you for an hour very soon.
I can't wait.
That'll be awesome. And for the Center of Calmness, I'm DK Warner.